Yeah.
Yeah, whatever you want. I can sit right here.
Had anyone not seen the show before tonight?
Never.
Ah, that's great. So any questions?
I have a question. Have you guys had anybody come see the show who didn't know what they were getting themselves into?
Yes.
Have you had children in here?
Because we sometimes end up with children who are here for a puppet show. And they end up being very close.
Slowly realize they.
What do they bag out in the
My favorite though is watching them walk up the aisle and the kids are going like this.
I want to see the thing.
It's always during the puppet sex.
Alright. So you guys are all bloggers?
Yeah.
You guys enjoy doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it hard?
No.
It seems like it would be.
What is a blogger?
We have a good variety of bloggers. We have some theater bloggers and some travel bloggers and some mom bloggers, just different.
That's awesome. Yeah, Hazel has 2 kids.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Could you share with us what were some of the challenges in learning the artistry of the puppets? Because I'm sure that there's a lot of choreography and such, and in your audition process, share a little bit about that, if you would.
Well, in order to even get to final callbacks, you have to go to puppet camp for 2 days, and they teach you just enough to know how much you don't know. It's terrifying. I know that the people that I knew who had been actors who learned puppetry for the show, who've done Avenue People before me, when I was in rehearsals, all called and asked if I'd cried yet, because it just, you get to a point where you're like, it's too much to think about. It's not just making sure she's moving her lips at the same time as me. Does it end on an M? It's different if it ends on a V, which ends open. She has to walk and talk at the same time, and she has to walk at a much faster pace than I do because her legs are shorter than mine are. It's making sure that her eyes are always looking where my eyes are looking, and that she's always, that you think, it's really your middle finger that's pointing where her eyes should be, but sometimes you'll just forget, and so she's looking over there, and you're saying your line, and it's all wrong. It's so many things for a brain, never mind remembering the words and the music and your staging and all of that. It's so much at first that it's horrifying. And then understudies who have to know, lots of like.
Is it mirror work, or are you doing things in the mirror?
You learn on the mirror, and then they take the mirror away.
The biggest thing about the mirror is learning where your focus is with these 2 eyes. Because the thing about a puppet is, as soon as it goes completely profile, it kind of dies. If the audience can see both eyes, then it's alive. It's a very kind of unique thing to this sort of style of puppetry. And so learning exactly how much you can turn in the mirror and still have those eyes be visible is some kind of.
Is it heavy? Do you feel weight?
It's not. I mean,
It's not the
Rod,
weight as much
Rod
as the position of your hands, I think.
and Wedding Princeton are I think the 2 heaviest. Wedding Princeton because he's wearing a full tux. That's actual real tux. It's like baby clothes, and it's like and that thing weighs a ton.
Just try doing just this for 2 hours, and that sucks. Even if it's a pound or 2, add it onto that, and it's.
And then pisting your arm up and down for a little while. So you're walking.
I was in the show before, and I actually just came back tonight. It was my first night, and I've been gone for a year.
Oh,
No, but my arm right now, I can tell you, it's maddening that a year later, how come I didn't keep that specific arm strength a year ago? It's really, it's hard. I'm here to tell you, I'm going to need a massage tomorrow.
What are the differences between doing the show here and doing it at the Golden?
There's a lot more candy opening in this theater.
Yes!
There's a lot more bottles rolling down the.
And we make less money in the audience.
Metro cards.
Overall, I think the crowds have been just as great. I mean, everyone.
But nothing. I saw the show in previews at the Golden. That's the only time I had seen it. Loved it then. I'm so glad to be here tonight. I don't remember. Were these at the Golden?
Yeah, very little different.
And I mean, Christine Daly was with the original production. She could tell you what's different now.
You were in the original production.
Fox News.
Six
Used to be George
It
Bush.
was George Bush.
It used to be a lot of things. It was George Bush for a long time, and then they sort of
Changed.
inserted
You
various
created
things.
it. Gary
for not making it your blog.
Right.
This set traveled intact including the stage from the Golden Theater.
Really?
Oh, wow.
And this was the original off-Broadway at the venue too, right?
Yeah.
No, they rebuilt it.
Oh,
You didn't-
entirely. Like I said, this wasn't the original.
I did the tour for 9 months too, so this is 500 seats and the Golden was 800 seats. So we would play like 2,200 seats, houses, and they were really worried because the Vineyard is 150, I think. They were really worried about making making the move to 800 seats and how puppets read, and actually really is funny. On tour, it works even almost better because the puppets read so much better than human faces so far away. You can't see human faces. But you can read Kate's face from really far away, so sort of surprisingly, it ends up doing just as well in a huge house as it does in a smaller one.
Do you ever get confused with the multiple puppets? Like, since you're playing two characters, do you ever forget for a moment?
I never have you?
No.
Some
I mean,
people
the biggest trick is making sure the voices are very disparate. You don't want to be like having voices that are really close together. You want to be like, one's Princeton and one is Rod. It's like you're not going to mix those two.
Right.
You know.
As long as you know what you're doing, like Kate would never do something Lucy would do.
Right.
Lucy's being, when I'm doing Lucy, but I'm speaking Kate, Lucy's always being bitchy. Kate would never do that, you know. So they're so different that I mean, I'm lucky because I get good girl, bad girl, which is even more sort of absolute differences than you have. You have more subtlety.
Subtlety.
Question over there.
What kind of training did you get singing in a cartoon-like voice? Is it difficult? That's obviously different than singing in a human voice.
Yeah,
And
especially
singing
for you.
multiple voices. Is that difficult?
This voice is. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I have nothing. I had apple cider vinegar backstage. For this voice, that's all I know.
Yeah, this show is shockingly vocally intensive. It's like, you know, range-wise, it's pretty broad, but try singing all that stuff with this really pinched voice. You know?
It's helpful to have a sound system to back you up rather than projecting, because I know that even in the first few seats, it seemed like the sound system is carrying the voices that are very subtle. So you don't have to project as much as a
Yeah.
cartoon like this.
Because you have to remember that it's 8 times a week you have to do this, so you could maybe push through and do it once. But I know for me, I had to, in rehearsals, figure out, Kate's easy, because she's just higher. She's just up above, which is actually like really the most healthy place you can be in a girl's voice. Yeah. So she's easy, but the Lucy's performing who just done a really low thing. And I just don't have that. I'm such a soprano. So I said I always thought she sounded like Mae West. So I was like, I'm going to do a bad Mae West impersonation and make her nasal and lower but nasal. And that's how they'll be different. But I just knew I couldn't do that each week. I was already in rehearsals. It was hurting. So you have to figure out what works for you.
It's interesting too. There's a lot of shows that have matinee people go on. You know, the leads go on for 6 shows, but our people do all that shit.
Over there.
How has it been since Gary Coleman passed away?
That one weekend was weird. So weird. Jeff Whitty, the guy who wrote our script, came in and changed some things, and it was tough. But I think we handled it pretty well. I think we did. You know, we're keeping his memory alive. And the one thing I love about Gary is that he kept trying no matter what. You know, so.
And to be honest, I mean, of all the characters, Gary comes out pretty well in the end. He's the one who figures out who he is and what he was always meant to be. None of the other characters really get that.
I noticed the way you hold I guess you said the handles of the puppets. There's like almost a technique with your hand. Could you maybe go into explaining that, the way you hold?
I was thinking about that today because it's been a year since I had a couple of rehearsals. But I do a weird thing where because everybody else holds them like this, I just feel like I have more control over them like this. But it is funny how it evolves over time. I know that you have. There are times where we have to have 2 rods and let go of one and grab another. And it's like whatever works, like whatever will. You do the thing where he's crossing and he goes like this, and his one arm is in Canada.
Yeah.
And then times where you have it's advanced stuff that I remember the guys teaching us, like Peter Linz, who was the guy from Sesame Street, who's brilliant, and just him teaching me. And I remember watching him do stuff and thinking, I'll never be able to do that. But when he has 2 rods, instead of holding them like this, taking one finger and putting it inside the second rod so they can spread them farther. Exactly, so she can spread it farther, and it just looks better. And you think you'll never be able. There's so much you think I'll never be able to do that, but you do it enough times, and eventually you just keep 8 times a week. You get bored, so you start tinkering with how can I hone this? How can I add more detail, more polish to more specifics of her reactions, the ways that everything that she does. It's been cool. I was obsessed with the Muppets when I was little. It was the coolest thing ever. I didn't even know. I feel so lucky. What a special skill to have on your resume, you know?
And the interesting thing about this style of puppetry is that a lot of it is just learning new vocabulary. Like Princeton, I keep him in almost an entire state of the entire show. That is his character. He's, oh yeah? Oh yeah? And so everything he does is, I think the entire show he's like that. Rod is a little different. You have to think about posture. He's a little more rigid, a little more stuck in his ways. So he's kind of up and down, kind of like that. So a lot of it is about learning vocabulary that'll carry to the audience. Like, okay, if I make the arm do this, what does that connote? What does that, what will that read to an audience?
Yeah. Well, I think I found Kate when I decided that she just always fixed her hair. That was her first That's who she is, and she always kind of does this a lot too. But when she's certain, she does that. And those moves really it helped me know who she was.
So they allow each of you, the actors, through the years, to put their own spin. The creative spin.
To a certain extent. I mean, coming in as Princeton Rod, you know that the Princeton voice is going to sound like this, and the Rod voice is going to sound like that. You either can do the voices or you can't. And so that was sort of ingrained in the role coming in.
And there's editing, I think, too. There's a lot of try what you want, and then from the front we can tell you that's working, that's not. What do you mean by that move? Because I'm not getting it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
It's hard because like her arm is like it's like a little noodle, so not everything looks right on it. And you'll have this great idea about how she should go like this. She's never going to do that because her arm simply won't do that. So you could try something in the mirror and be like, yeah, it's not going to work. I have to figure something else out that will convey that same spirit. But it's a very limited vocabulary. Also, they don't have legs, so there's so much that you can't do simply because they don't have legs, which is why there's not much dancing in this show.
Which is interesting why people get offended by the sex scene too, because there's nothing below the waist. And that's when you start to realize when you walk out, oh, that was all up here. I was picturing everything they were doing.
We're going to do one more question, and if anyone wants to be in a photo, we can do that. But thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you guys so much.
These were a great crowd.
And last question right there.
How long do the puppets last? When do you get a replacement cast for the puppets?
Builds these, and they're made of like space-age materials. I mean, these things rarely break down, and these are incredibly expensive. I don't know what the actual number is, but each one of these.
Ask Mikey. That's our puppet wrangler right there.
Yeah.
That's Mikey. Good Mark.
How
long do the puppets last? What are they made of? How long do they?
It depends on who's necessary. It depends on time and how long we've had them. That Kate Monster's only been here for 3 months, 6 months, maybe between 3 and 6 months together.
Just stay fluffy.
And I know that the yellow bear is one of the oldest that we have. She's, I think, 4.5 years old.
She's a dirty, dirty girl.
How many scenes they're in and who's using them and how they're being used.
Yeah. It's funny because there's 2 Kates back there. Anytime you see a puppet in a different costume, it's a different puppet because there's just not time to do costume changes. So there's 2 Kates back there, and I was looking at both of them. They both were like, their fur was matted and gone right here. And I realized they're the 2 Kates who have the big makeouts. And so over time, having the 2 makeout sessions in the cabaret and the
backstage.
But everything else about them is fabulous. They're just losing a little fur right here.
Great. Well, thank you guys again.